Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for...
It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy's Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
Well, what's going on? It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Hope you're having a great day. It's Thursday, otherwise known as Friday Eve. I can't wait for Friday. I know you can't wait for Friday. Actually, I don't know. I can kind of wait for Friday. I've got an 8-hour drive ahead of me coming up this weekend. One of my best friends in the world, he gets married on Sunday in Arkansas, and I am in the wedding. So Friday night, long drive, up early Saturday morning for bachelor things. Can't wait. Now, getting up early on Saturday morning is going to be a bit of an issue for me because I like staying up late. I do, and then I have to get up early, and I'm just like, I don't really want to get out of bed. And last night, I was up late. I was watching the Indiana Fever, and I was watching Caitlin Clark, and she had an incredible game, broke not one, but two records. If you want to critique the turnovers, shut up. Nobody wants to hear from you, okay? We just want to enjoy the greatness that is Caitlin Clark. And look, I've watched a lot of Caitlin Clark over the past, 12 months, going back to her time at Iowa. And now I watch her even more because she's local. She's playing for the Fever. She's a big story. And I find the way that Caitlin Clark has been portrayed in the WNBA so far very interesting. And I say that to set up one of my favorite segments that we do here on the Real Jonathan Smith Show, Conspiracy Corner. Conspiracy Corner, where I come up with or respond to a conspiracy going on in the sports world. Okay, we stick to sports here on the Real Jonathan Smith Show, and I'll say it again. I find the way that Caitlin Clark has been portrayed so far in the WNBA interesting. I don't think that you'd find it uncommon to come across parents that paint Caitlin Clark as a positive role model. Okay, I think that people in the media paint and portray Caitlin Clark as a positive role model. Okay, when she's at the podium answering questions during press conferences, she always says the right thing. Okay, she's never loud. She's never pointing to herself. She's very much about her team in the way that she answers questions. And I think that parents hear that and they want their kids to act in a similar fashion. So they want their kids to look up to Caitlin Clark. That way they can be like, hey, you see that? She's not gloating in her victory, right? She's very grounded. Okay, that's what I think parents want for their kids to look up to. Okay, and I think that people see Caitlin Clark at these press conferences and they label Caitlin Clark as a nice person. I think they label her as someone who was raised right. And these press conferences that she does, where she doesn't really seem entirely interested, feed into her image. And I believe that it reflects the way that she was raised, right? So off the court, she seems like an awesome person. She really does. Then there's the on the court stuff. And that to me is where this becomes interesting. And this is where the conspiracy comes into play. I believe that the WNBA is going out of their way to ensure that people, fans in particular, like Caitlin Clark beyond the way that she plays basketball. Everyone wants to root for the good guy. So the WNBA is making sure that Caitlin Clark is labeled as the good guy. Now, this belief comes from something that I have not seen in these WNBA games and the way that they've been broadcasted versus what I saw from Caitlin Clark at Iowa and the way that she was covered and the way that she responded when good things happened. Okay, when Caitlin Clark was a Hawkeye, she was intense. She was fiery. She had a motor mouth that could power skyscrapers in New York City, right? Like, she's a huge trash talker. Okay, and she complained to the officials constantly. anytime she hit a big shot, throwing her arms in the air, like, hey, are you not entertained by what I can do? Okay, like that's who she was, and the broadcast would cut to her celebrating. Okay, anytime there was a foul called on Caitlin Clark, or anytime there was a moment where Caitlin Clark thought she was fouled and they didn't call it, she would turn to the official immediately. And if there was a break in the action, a timeout, someone else at the free throw line, she would complain to the official. And you would see it on these broadcasts when she was playing for Iowa. Meanwhile, I'm watching these WNBA games, and I never see it. And the camera angles are interesting. They are. And it's to a point where I think that the WNBA is hiding it. Right? Like when I think about her season, there are only a couple of moments that really stick out with her celebrating or talking trash. On Sunday, the Fever went into Minnesota and they played the Lynx and they beat them. The head coach for the Minnesota Lynx is also going to coach the Olympic team. And she had some choice words for Caitlin Clark when asked about her. Something along the lines of, I don't give a crap, but she didn't say crap. And so the Fever, they go on, they win that game. And at the end of the game, Caitlin Clark gets fouled. She's walking to the free throw line and she's pumping up the crowd. That moment sticks out to me. And that's really the only moment that I could remember them broadcasting to the audience the emotion that Caitlin Clark plays with. And last night, they had another moment that really stuck out. When it became evident that the Fever were going to lose, we see Caitlin Clark grab a water bottle and spike it. Okay, and those are really the only two moments that I can remember of them really portraying the emotion that Caitlin Clark shows when she's on the basketball court. And I just find it peculiar that with as much as I watch, I can't remember the broadcast consistently showing Caitlin Clark talking trash or complaining to the officials like the way that she did when she was at Iowa. And I believe that there are three potential explanations for this. Option one is that she stopped talking trash, complaining, and celebrating. And I giggle a little bit as I say this because, come on now, that's absurd. Okay, she definitely still talks trash. She definitely still complains. Dan Dockich was at one of the games last week, and he saw it. He saw her complain, right? And she definitely still celebrates. So I don't believe that this is the explanation. Okay, like while I do believe that people can change, like the idea that a leopard can't change its spots is it's untrue. It just is. Okay, if that was the case, then AA meetings would be pointless, right? So I do believe that people can change. I just think that it takes people time to do so. And Caitlin Clark was so animated during her final year at Iowa, really every year that she was at Iowa, that I highly doubt that she was able to change that so drastically to a point where she rarely responds in that manner anymore. And because, I mean, look, like she played in the national title game, got drafted 3 weeks later, and was playing soon after that. So I find it hard that she could correct these habits that she's had in such a short amount of time. Option two is that I've become numb to it. I can get behind this idea. Like the idea that I've seen Caitlin Clark celebrate, talk trash, and complain so many times that I don't realize it anymore is very possible. Right? She did it a lot at Iowa, as I have stressed throughout this topic. Okay, it's very possible that I just got used to it. Right? Just like how, as a Dallas Mavericks fan at heart, just like how I got so used to Luka Doncic just complaining that I didn't notice it in Dallas Mavericks games. Then they were put on national TV and everyone didn't like it. And I was reminded, oh yeah, he does complain a lot. So we can become numb to things that we see consistently. And I think it's very possible that not only I, but the mass majority of the audience have gone numb to Caitlin Clark's trash talking, complaining, and celebrating, right? Because we followed her from Iowa to the WNBA. So I do think that that's possible. The third and final option, where the conspiracy theory truly lies, is that nothing has changed. right? That's our third option. Nothing has changed. Caitlin Clark still talks a ton of trash. Caitlin Clark still celebrates a ton. And Caitlin Clark still complains a ton. But these broadcasts and the WNBA are choosing not to show these clips because they know that more people will watch Caitlin Clark if they like her. And that makes perfect sense to me from a marketing perspective. Okay? Like companies, when they want to boost their brand, they grab people that, their audience likes. Okay? Like there's a reason why Under Armour signed Steph Curry. It's because a lot of people like Steph Curry. Right? The reason why they signed him and not, Draymond Green, who a lot of people can't stand. Right? And if that's what the WNBA is trying to do, if they're trying to frame Caitlin Clark in this positive light by not showing her, lashing out at teammates, complaining, getting upset at referees, then that's brilliant. And it's working brilliantly. Okay, Caitlin Clark is viewed as a positive role model, even though she used to complain at the same level as Luka Doncic, talk trash at the same frequency as Gary Payton, and celebrate like Deion Sanders. Okay, like that's how she behaves on a basketball court. But people don't really seem to care about it. And look, I don't know about you, but my parents would never have condoned me complaining to referees and umpires the way that Caitlin Clark does when I was a kid. I'll never forget. I'm a sophomore in high school, and I'm playing summer ball, and I'm like 3 for 3. I've got like 2 doubles and a rocket single, and I'm playing short. And the pitcher for the opposing team ended up on second base. And I walked over there and I let him know that I was 3 for 3 with 2 doubles and a rocket single. And then he starts talking back. We're, talking trash, whatever. I never forget coming off the field. My parents grabbed me like, "Hey, Jonathan, maybe don't be a jerk." I was like, "Oh, okay, my bad." So I know my parents wouldn't condone me behaving the way that Caitlin Clark does when I was a kid. And it's an interesting thing to me because we all know that she complains. And we all know how much trash she talks. And we all know how much she celebrates. But she's viewed in this very positive light. But when Luka Doncic complains, we don't like it. When Patrick Beverley talks trash, we don't like it. And we label them as not necessarily bad people or bad role models, but there's definitely some distaste for those guys. So my question is, what makes Caitlin Clark different? Is it because the press conferences are so impressive? I mean, like maybe that's it. Is it because the other WNBA players are petty and she isn't? And because she appears to be so much nicer and better than her peers, once again, she appears to be that way. I'm not saying that she is that way, but because that's how it seems, do we view her in a better light because of that? That's kind of my question. And look, I gotta be honest, like I'm not sure what it is and why we view her as this very positive person when I watch her actions on the court, as much as, the WNBA and these broadcasts potentially want to hide those actions. Like I know how she behaves. Like I saw her at Iowa. And for some reason, like we don't condone her actions. So I'm not sure what it is, but what I do know is that there are some athletes that for some reason, whatever reason, we just choose to like them. Okay? It doesn't matter how they behave or what they do. Whatever it is, we choose to like them. For example, Michael Jordan was a total jerk to his teammates. Okay? He was mean. He was rude. He oftentimes ignored a lot of them. Okay? The Jordan Rules, written by Sam Smith, is incredible. Okay? Came out in the 90s. And, I read the book while I was away on vacation. And I'm just like, geez, man, Michael Jordan sucked. He was not a nice guy. He didn't talk to a lot of his teammates. And when he did, it often came with him lashing out at them or making fun of them, right? He complained to officials. He talked a lot of trash. He celebrated. But for some reason, we liked him. And the answer as to why we liked him is because he was great. And I think that Caitlin Clark falls into a similar category of she's so overwhelmingly awesome that we really don't care what she does. Right? Like, I think that there are several correlations between the two. Right? Like, Michael Jordan very rarely said a bad thing about anybody at a press conference. He did. Like, he never went out and he never lashed out in front of the media. Right? But like during games, he was pretty rude. No other way to really put it. And I think Caitlin Clark behaves in a similar fashion on the court, but off the court, she's as nice as they come. And it's just a really interesting thing because there are other players out there that I think fall into a similar category, but because they aren't as good, we don't view them in a similar light of, oh, this person seems like they're, a good role model. But anyway, I digress. Caitlin Clark, as I was saying, is a great player. She showed even more last night as to why she is a great player, even though they lost to the Dallas Wings. Caitlin Clark set not one, but two records last night, which is pretty incredible. I'm going to tell you what those are when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
Save big money on everything you need when you shop at Menards. Menards is your destination for pet food and supplies. Stock up on Greenie's Dental Dog Treats. They have a unique texture to fight plaque and tartar and are vet recommended. Save big today on Greenie's Dental Dog Treats at Menards. America's #1 home improvement retailer for customer satisfaction, according to J.D. Power. For J.D. Power 2024 award information, visit jdpower.com/awards.
Save big money at Menards.
Steps.
Unadulterated sports talk with unfiltered takes. It's the real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
What's going on? The real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Caitlin Clark, man, she's incredible. No, there's no other word for it. She is simply insane. Okay, last night, she set not one but two records. Caitlin Clark set the single WNBA assist record last night with 19, which is pretty insane. Caitlin Clark also set the single season assist record for the Fever, right? So you could take your turnover criticisms and shove it. Okay, I mean, like, if you're bringing up turnovers at this point, then you're clearly just a hater. Seriously, like I need a better term than hater, but at the same time, I think it perfectly encapsulates what I mean. Like, she is producing so much good for this Fever team. And sure, it's at the expense of 5 or 6 turnovers. But come on now, man. She had 19 assists and scored 24 points last night. She is nothing short of incredible. And here is Aaliyah Boston and Caitlin Clark after the game talking about Caitlin setting these records.
She's going to say it means nothing, but I think it's pretty cool. I think that's pretty cool. So it's all right. I just think I just try to set my teammates up for success. I think at times, like, I can almost overpass, and that can maybe, I don't know. There probably could have been a few times where instead of passing that leads to turnover that I might have, I can probably shoot the ball. But especially with AB, like, I'm just looking to set her up so much. Like, my eyes are just always on our post players, whether that's Liz or whether that's AB or whoever's in the game at the time, and then kind of look out from there. But yeah, I mean, we still didn't shoot it very good from 3, and I thought we finished really well around the paint. I'm sure our points in the paint were pretty good, 62 points in the paint. So yeah.
That was Caitlin Clark, very nonchalantly discussing the fact that she, set 2 records last night in their loss against the Dallas Wings with 19 assists in the game, breaking the WNBA single game record and also breaking the Indiana Fever's single season assist record. And she's only 13 assists away from breaking the all-time rookie assist in a season record. So she's going to shatter that as well unless she gets hurt. So once again, Caitlin Clark finished with 24 points, 19 assists, 6 rebounds, and 6 turnovers. Who cares about the 6 turnovers? Seriously. Okay, if I have to hear more people talk about the turnovers that Caitlin Clark commits, I'm going to go crazy. Seriously. Do they matter? Sure. Okay. You can say that, whatever, but she is giving so much good that does it really matter? This very small amount of bad. Like, seriously, like, if the Fever had shot it better from 3 last night, as she mentioned in that clip, they really struggled. She probably would have had, 20 or more than 20 assists. Okay, she'd have been at like 23, 24, maybe 25. I don't know. But seriously, like, she is producing at such a high level. And we have to remember, she is a rookie. Okay? Like, she's still kind of adjusting. Like, she's clearly, made some changes to her game. She's really turned a corner in the last month. And with that being said, like, she is still a rookie. Okay? She's still, played 20-something games. That's it. She's coming up on a long break with the All-Star game approaching, and the Olympics coming up, not too far after that, but she's incredible, man. And if you want to focus on the turnovers, that's fine, but you're missing out on something that is truly generational. Okay? Now, if you wanted to rip the Indiana Fever for allowing 101 points last night, that's fine. I'm in full favor of that. If you score 93 points in a 40-minute basketball game, you should never lose. You should win every single one of those games. You should, right? Because giving up 93 points in a 40-minute basketball game is insane. Yet alone, 101. That's still the Indiana Fever's biggest issue. They just aren't consistent enough defensively, and they're kind of entering this Pacers territory of we can score, we can beat really good teams because we're capable of scoring, but the defense fluctuates from night to night, which leads to inconsistency. Okay, this is back-to-back losses against two of the worst teams in the league. They lost to the Washington Mystic last week, right, who are probably the worst team in the league, and then they lose to the Dallas Wings last night. That's unacceptable. Good teams don't drop games like that. They don't. Okay, and the reason why they're losing these games isn't the offense. It's not because of Caitlin Clark's turnovers. Okay, it's because they can't defend at a high enough level. Now, as people that listen to the show pretty regularly, you will know that I am an NBA sicko. Okay, I love it. I watch a lot of NBA stuff. Been watching a lot of summer league action. Watched some last night after the Fever game ended. Had a blast doing it. Watched Bronny James. Hey, scored 12 points. Right. So I enjoy watching it. I just enjoy watching basketball in general. And the NBA over-unders are out for next season. Okay, they came out yesterday at around 5 o'clock. So being the NBA sicko that I am, I had to take a look. I did. And when it comes to the Eastern Conference, I wanted to look at the teams whose over-under win total projection, put them in a spot where they would be competing for a top 6 seed in the playoffs, avoiding the play-in. And there were 8 teams that jumped out. Here were the first 4 of those teams and their over-under totals. Boston, they lead the NBA with their projected win total set at 58.5. The Knicks are second in the Eastern Conference at 53.5. The 76ers are third at 52.5. And the Bucks are at 50.5. That's 4 teams projected in the Eastern Conference to win 50 games or more, which is insane. And then of the other notable teams that could be a top 6 seed, the Miami Heat are set at 44.5. Okay. And then the Cavaliers, Pacers, and Magic are all set at 47.5, which is interesting. And I decided to group all of them together for a reason. And that reason is because their over-under is the same for all of them. And when I look at these teams, especially these top teams, I think that there are a lot of unders in play here. Boston's not going to win 59 games. Okay. They're going to be more content after winning a title. Okay, that's usually what happens. Guys relax a little bit. They don't take the regular season as seriously as they normally would since they won a title last year. Okay, teams that win a title and decide to bring everyone back just have a tendency to not play as hard during the regular season the following year. In addition to that, Jason Tatum, Drew Holiday, Derek White. What are all 3 of them doing right now? Playing basketball deep into the summer because they're playing on the Olympic team. They're going to come back tired. That's going to happen. So because of that, I think Boston loses games in October and November, and that keeps them from reaching that 59 win mark to hit the over. So I've got the under on that. The Knicks are second in the Eastern Conference with their projected win total set at 53.5. I'm going to take the over. Because unlike the Boston Celtics, they don't take anything easy in New York, especially with Tom Thibodeau as the head coach. Okay, they're going to play every game hard. They're probably going to be the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. That would be my prediction as of today. So I like their over. The 76ers are projected to finish third at 52.5 wins. This has to be an under. Joel Embiid and Paul George are going to miss too many games. Okay, Joel Embiid gets hurt a lot and he takes nights off. Paul George, unless it's a contract year, he takes nights off. He does. Okay, that's just kind of the way that it works. So 2 of their 3 best players aren't going to be available for 25 to 30 games this year. They're going to lose a lot of those. I really like Tyrese Maxey, but they're going to lose a lot of those games because 2 of their 3 best players aren't going to be available. And I think that'll lead to them winning less than 52 games. The Milwaukee Bucks are predicted to finish 4th and win 50 games. I'm taking the under here as well. I don't think the Bucks are going to be very good, just to be honest. Like Giannis, he'll be great. But the rest of this roster is old. Damian Lillard is old. No faith in him being consistent. He was up and down last year. The highs were incredibly high, but the lows were really low. Chris Middleton's getting older. Brook Lopez getting older. Right? Like the young guy on their team is Bobby Portis, and he's 30. Right? This is also a team that's won a title. Teams that have won titles before tend to relax. They tend to take some regular season games off. And I think that's what we're going to see from this Bucks team. I also don't think that Doc Rivers is a very good coach. So that doesn't help their case at all either. And when it comes to the Miami Heat, they're also in the mix for this. And, I've also got them winning under their win total prediction, which is set at 44.5. Jimmy Butler just doesn't play enough games, and the Heat don't have enough offense outside of him to win those games that he doesn't play. That brings me to the Cavaliers, Pacers, and Magic, whose over-under win totals are all set at 47.5. Okay, they are predicted to be the 5, 6, and 7 seeds. Okay, based on win total. Right, that's why I decided to group them together. Right, so the consensus is that the Celtics, Knicks, and Bucks and 76ers will be the top 4 seeds. It won't shake out that way because of injuries and load management, and someone on one of those teams is going to get hurt. Like it happens every year, okay, that someone important gets hurt, and so one of those teams is going to miss somebody for a while. So if I'm right, the Celtics, 76ers, and Bucks won't hit their target win totals. That means that there are going to be extra wins available out there for all 3 of these teams predicted to win 47.5 games. Okay, once again, those 3 teams, Pacers, Magic, and the Cavaliers. Of those 3 teams, I think the Pacers and the Magic will both hit over 47.5 wins. And I think that the Cavaliers will hit the under. I'm waiting on the Cavaliers to make a pretty dramatic move. Okay, I kind of thought that they would have made a big trade already. Surprised that Darius Garland is still in Cleveland. Like I'm still waiting for him to be traded away. They could also trade Jared Allen or Evan Mobley away. Wouldn't be surprised by that either. That's why I like the under for them. I think a big move is coming their way. And now I get into the Pacers. If the Pacers can just beat the bad teams like they were unable to do last year, then they should cruise to 50 wins. Shoot, if they had beat the bad teams last year, they would have cruised to 50 wins. Okay, they're going to have Pascal Siakam all year, which immediately raises the floor. That's a huge boost. They have plenty of offense. Okay, like I think there's no pushback against that. Okay, like they're going to win a lot of games just outscoring people. If they can just find a way to be decent on defense like they were after the All-Star break last year, then they should be able to win a lot of games, more than, 47. Okay, this Pacers team is going to be good. I wouldn't be surprised if they were a top 3 seed in their conference just because they've got a lot of options. They have a lot of depth. And, Siakam and Halliburton, they don't really do load management. They play in a lot of the games, which that helps when your best players are playing consistently in the regular season. Now, the other team that I mentioned here are the Orlando Magic, who are the Pacers, but opposite. Super young, but instead of being great offensively, they're great defensively. They defended better than any other team in the NBA last year. They're going to get stops everywhere that they go, and that's going to lead to them winning a bunch of games. They added some shooting, much needed shooting, by signing Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. They've got some young players that are in the process of developing, and if they had good summers, then they could come back and be a really dominant team, right? If Jeb Howard, Anthony Black, and Tristan Da Silva all end up being really good players, then they'll not only be one of the best teams in the NBA, but they'll be one of the deepest teams in the NBA. And between these 2 teams, the Magic and the Pacers, if I had to predict which one would kind of launch into that top 4 seed category, I would pick the Magic to be a higher seed. They're incredibly deep. They have multiple good offensive players, and they're just a much better defensive team than the Pacers are, right? And defense travels, and it shows up every night. Meanwhile, when it comes to offense, it doesn't always show up. So as of today, the Pacers are probably the 5th best team in the Eastern Conference. That's where I'd probably have them, behind the Celtics. Actually, no, 4th best team, behind the Celtics, 76ers, Magic, and why am I going blank here? Where did my stuff go? Behind the Celtics, 76ers, Magic. Yeah, those 3 teams. They're the 4th best team. I think they're better than Milwaukee. I was looking for an extra team that I actually didn't need. So there you go. NBA over under win totals are out. Head out. Bet the Pacers over. They're going to win more than 47.5 games. I guarantee it. Why not? Let's give it a good old guarantee. Okay, Pacers win more than 47 games. Now, enough basketball. I love football. You love football. Teams are starting to report for training camp, which is exciting. Colts training camp starts next week. Can't wait for that. That's going to be an absolute blast. And with that comes a lot of articles. Okay, comes a lot of crap as well. I've got Kevin Potts, writer for his own personal Substack. He's going to join me at 11. Had him on a lot during draft season. Liked him. I think he does good work. So he's going to join me at 11 to talk training camp. He's also a 49ers fan, so we're going to talk Brandon Aiyuk stuff as well. But with training camp on the horizon, that's really all I want to talk about. And I want to heed some warning because the Colts hype train is coming. Okay, the articles on how great these Colts players are, they are coming. So I've got a list of the 5 Colts players that will be hyped up the most during training camp, and I'm going to give you that list when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
Hello, it's me, the designer jeans in your closet. The back of your closet. What am I doing here? Would you keep caviar in the back of your fridge with the ketchup and old milk? Yeah, I don't think so. So, what happened to us? I mean, have you seen my label? I used to summer in the Hamptons, and now I'm stuck behind a pair of sweats. Sure, I never really fit you quite right, and one of my pockets is so small you can't even squeeze your hand into it. But it's all about the look. And I look good. I need to get back out on the scene so I can be seen. You know, going to fancy parties, getting expensive iced coffees, Sunday fun days, okay? So take me to Goodwill, where I can really make a difference.
Your donations to Goodwill create new jobs, training programs, and education assistance for people in your community. To find your nearest donation center, go to goodwill.org. Donate stuff. Create jobs. A message from Goodwill and the Ad Council.
More winners, more often. It's the real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy's Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
The real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket, and I have to heed some warning. Colts training camp starts in less than a week. It is quickly approaching, and I just want everyone to be prepared. Now, I have faith that the Colts players are going to be ready to go, right? I'm sure they're chomping at the bit right now, knowing that the Houston Texans have already started their training camp. I'm sure they're chomping at the bit to get to the facility and get to work. But I want to make sure that us as fans are ready for training camp. You know, I say that and you're probably thinking something along the lines of, Jonathan, it's been way too many days since I've experienced anything related to football. Trust me, I am ready. Now, here's the thing. The start of training camp feels like the unofficial start day of the NFL season, right? So that's not entirely what I mean. And what I'm about to talk about happens in every market across the country every year during training camp. But we're going to see multiple articles daily on how good these Colts players are. Okay, like these writers, these media people, man, they're going to pop open their laptops and they're going to wax poetic for 1,000 words on how good fill in the blank player is. Okay, because everyone wants for their favorite team to be good. Everyone wants for whatever team that they cover to be good, right? So they write these positive things to get you to buy into whatever they're selling, right? Like they just tell you what you want to hear. So I just want you to be prepared to sidestep these articles because they don't have any merit whatsoever. Okay, just like how what NFL players in training camp do means absolutely nothing. That's what these articles that are about to start coming out mean. So I have compiled a list of 5 players that the Indianapolis Colts media members are most likely to write positive, fluffy, happy-go-lucky articles about. Okay, when you see positive articles on these 5 players, take them with a grain of salt. Okay, unless there are legitimate details on how someone has played, I just kind of push it to the side. Okay? Every writer that is going to be at Colts training camp over these next 5 days is looking to write something about these 5 players because these are the guys that are going to get the most clicks. Okay? And people enjoy reading positive things about the most important players on their favorite teams. Now, if you see something positive about someone not on this list of 5 guys, read it, enjoy it. You know, you can read it with the idea that this one's probably just a little bit more honest than the other one. So let's start with the most obvious guy on this list, Anthony Richardson. Okay, it's the easy one. Everyone knows that everyone wants to talk to this guy. They want to write about this guy because he's a starting quarterback. Okay, who doesn't want to write and talk about the starting quarterback? Okay, he will undoubtedly lead the Indianapolis Colts players this offseason or during this training camp cycle in the most positive articles published. Okay, now he may not lead them in passing yards this year, and I have reservations about assuming that he will given his littered injury history, but he will undoubtedly, no doubt in my mind, be the most positively discussed player that the Colts have during training camp and during the season as well. Okay, and part of that is because he's the starting quarterback and everyone wants to write or talk about the starting quarterback. Okay, I talk about him more than any other player on the Colts. He's also young and unknown. Okay, it's easy to be positive about a player or a person when you haven't seen them do too many bad things. Okay, like the first time you go out on a date with someone, they put their best foot forward, you leave, and you're like, oh, that was great. You know, she checks all the boxes of all these different things that I want. I would like to see her again. Okay. And then, over the course of time, You start to see the flaws, and then you have to make a decision of like, do I want to keep doing this? Do I not? And then you have to move on from there. And with Anthony Richardson, us, the fans, the media, whoever, we are still in this honeymoon phase with the new Colts quarterback. It's early. We've seen him play 12 quarters of football. There have been some great flashes where you can see him in your mind. You're like, oh man, when he made that throw against the Rams, oh my gosh. When he had that 20-yard run against the Texans, pretty incredible, right? It's like those majorly positive things, they stick out in our minds, and it's so early and we've seen so little of him that we would like to think that the possibilities of how good he can be are endless. And so we dream of the best outcomes. And that leads to this consistently positive lens that people draw and that people view Anthony Richardson through, right? And these writers, they exploit that and they want to talk about how great he is because they know that that's what you want to read. The other part of this, and the reason why people are going to talk about Anthony Richardson in a positive manner, is because he's an absolute freak. He's an absolute specimen. Hey, players like Brock Purdy and Tom Brady, like they never look great in shorts. Okay, you show up to training camp and you're like, geez, man, he's got some like skinny legs and he's kind of small and frail. And is Tom, is he like a little bit overweight? You know, like you're watching these guys and they don't look great in shorts. They're a little awkward. They don't run very fast. But on Sundays, when everyone's in pads, they figure out a way to win. Meanwhile, players like Justin Fields, Cam Newton, and Anthony Richardson wow people when they're in shorts because they're such special athletes. And it's not hard to write something positive about someone when you're consistently being wowed by their athletic ability. Okay, when you see happy-go-lucky articles about Anthony Richardson, don't take them too seriously. Meanwhile, if you see someone talking negatively about Anthony Richardson, take that seriously because they don't want to write that. They don't. And you won't be seeing too many of those. Next on the list, Adonai Mitchell. He's in a similar boat to new Colts quarterback Anthony Richardson. Fans are still in this honeymoon phase with Adonai Mitchell. They saw the 4.3 40. They probably went back, saw highlights of him at Texas, and they're like, oh my gosh, I think this kid could be the best receiver in the rookie class, even though it's going to be Marvin Harrison Jr. Right? Like fans want so badly for Adonai Mitchell to be the best receiver that the Colts have had since Marvin Harrison and Reggie Wayne. Okay, the Colts haven't had an elite dominant receiver since those two guys. Okay, Colts fans, me included, desperately want to have an explosive receiver that they're willing to believe anything. So if you see articles or conversations about, how great Adonai Mitchell looks, whatever. Okay, that's what everyone wants to write. It's when you see the stuff that's bad. That's the one that you read. Figure out what the concerns are. Okay, because writers, the media, the Colts are going to do everything they can to paint this picture of Adonai Mitchell being ready to contribute from week one because that's what people want to hear. But I'm telling you right now, I doubt it. Rookies at the wide receiver position, unless they're super special, talking Justin Jefferson, A.J. Brown, those level of receivers, those are really the only guys that contribute immediately in the NFL. Okay, because playing wide receiver in the NFL is hard. It is. Okay, so don't buy into the positive baloney that's going to be thrown your way when it comes to Adonai Mitchell during training camp. Leatu Latu, right? This is the Colts' first-round pick from the season. This was the first defensive player off the NFL, drafted this year. Okay, everyone is going to be excited about him, and to be fair, I think they should be. I think Leatu Latu is going to be a good player, right? And since, to make things better, Chris Ballard, an absolute guru when it comes to drafting defensive linemen. Like, how could Leatu Latu not be the best player ever? Everyone should be excited about him. On a more serious note, everyone is going to be over the moon excited about Leatu Latu. Right? This is supposed to be the best defensive player in the draft, and I say that without sarcasm because, look, he was the first defensive player drafted. I think that's a reasonable expectation. Okay? Legitimately, I'm not trying to be sarcastic here. I can't believe he was on the board when the Colts had their selection. I thought the Falcons would take him at 8. Right? And all the writers are going to capitalize on this idea, in addition to Chris Ballard being excited about the guy. So, Latu stuff, same thing. You're going to see a lot of positivity, but take it with a grain of salt. Like, playing defensive end in the NFL is hard. It is, especially for younger guys. As polished as Latu is reported to be, I don't know. We will see. Anthony Gould, I have on this list as well, and this is a surprise when he was a 4th-round pick coming out of Oregon State. And I think people are going to show up to camp and they're going to see how incredibly explosive this guy is. And that's going to grab people's attention. I think people are going to see how fast and quick this kid is, and people will then fawn over him. Okay, there will be articles written on how this is the most explosive punt returner since Devin Hester. Okay, we're going to see stuff like that, okay? Like, that's where I think the positivity is going to come from. You know, writers and media people are going to talk about how great Gould has done with the special team stuff, and that's fine. And there'll be fluff pieces on how good this special teams unit's going to be for the Colts this year because they drafted Anthony Gould. And look, I hope they're right, but it's hard to find explosive punt and kickoff returners. And something tells me that Chris Ballard isn't going to be the guy to find him. Finally, the last guy on this list to be wary of when you see positive articles about them during training camp is Bernard Raymond. Bernard Raymond is supposed to be the next great Chris Ballard offensive lineman. I'm just not sold on that idea. He's been pretty average to start his career. PFF named him as the 16th best offensive tackle in the NFL. It's very average. It's very average. He's heading into his 3rd year in the NFL, and people are going to expect him to take a leap from last year and really ascend into this elite offensive tackle category. And because of that, that is the angle that these writers are going to attack it from. Okay? And, you know, people are going to be more optimistic because that's what they want to see from Raymond, but I don't think we're going to see it. Like, people want him to be good so badly. So they're going to portray him in a positive manner. Colts training camp starts next week. Can't wait for it. Beware of the fluff pieces. Joining me here in 5 minutes, Kevin Potts. We're going to continue talking football. My guy, Kevin, is a 49ers fan, so we're going to talk Brandon Aiyuk. What does that trade kind of look like? He's up in that area, so we're going to talk about that. And then we're going to talk a little training camp, not Colts specifically, like a little bit, but really just talk about the masses as a whole. That's coming your way here in about 4.5 minutes.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for
It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
What's going on? The Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Hope you guys are having a great Thursday, Friday Eve. I know I am. Training camp started officially in the NFL yesterday with the Houston Texans reporting, which means football season. It is almost here. I can just feel the cool fall breeze hitting my face as I eat a big old bowl of chili, and I take in great football. I just can't wait. Joining me now, Kevin Potts, who is also excited about the football season. Kevin, what's going on, man?
Good. I'm glad to be back. It's been a little bit. Like you said, we're getting closer to football season, starting to feel those vibes in the air, so I'm excited.
Man, me too, man. I can't wait. Look, I love hoops. I watch a lot of basketball, but I was born and raised in the South, man. It's like it runs through my veins, you know?
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing like it. There's a lot of other good sports I enjoy watching as well, but football's just a different animal. It feels a little bit different when that time of the year comes around.
It does. It's just it's the best. And Kevin has a Substack called Kevin Potts NFL and NFL Draft Breakdowns. He was on a lot during draft season, did a great job with that. So I had to bring him back to talk training camp, but I also had to bring him back because he's a 49ers fan. And Brandon Aiyuk has requested a trade. And so, honestly, like, I don't think Brandon Aiyuk gets traded. This seems just like a leverage play for him to get paid. What do you think are the chances that the 49ers move Aiyuk?
Yeah, I agree. I think they're pretty low this summer. This trade request feels just more like you said, just another leverage point. Usually when we get these trade requests, it's a symbol that they are not happy with something on the team. We knew that with Brandon Aiyuk. He has exhausted all the tricks in a bag that the modern NFL player has to express his discontent, especially with contract situations. And this is the latest one. Like you said, we got training camp coming up. He is going to start accruing fines. This holdout gets very, very expensive. So he's exhausting all resources to try and put pressure on the 49ers to either move him or get a deal. And I don't think they're going to do it. This is typically how they've handled contracts. Bosa didn't sign until September. If you guys remember Deebo Samuel a few years ago, he requested a trade. He didn't get a deal till late July. They're very comfortable waiting on these players when they're on contracts and not budging on their demand. We may see a trade maybe next year if this never really gets resolved before the season starts in terms of a new contract. But I think in the summer, for a team trying to win a Super Bowl, there's nothing you're getting for Brandon Aiyuk that is better than Brandon Aiyuk to help you go win that Super Bowl.
Okay, fair enough. Because that was my next question. Because everyone says, that certain players are quote unquote untouchable, which I don't believe. Like there's a price for everything. And so what do you think that price would be where, the general manager of the 49ers was like, you know what? Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, I think it's pretty expensive now. They've been pretty clear. They'll listen to anybody. Like you said, no one's untouchable. I think Bosa is the only guy that said, hey, we're not moving. Before the draft, I would have said if they could have gotten a first-round pick, they would have moved him. Because then you can go and get a legit contributor for this year. Now that this draft is passed, it's probably a first plus because you're not getting anything that contributes to this Super Bowl run. We don't see a ton of player trades. That's not entirely realistic. In terms of a draft pick, it'd probably be a first plus because you're basically removing an all-pro wide receiver from your team and getting nothing to add in a pretty crucial year for a Super Bowl for this franchise.
Okay. How much do you think the 49ers are going to wind up paying him?
I think it's going to come around that Amon-Ra St. Brown deal, especially if it gets done this summer. The overall numbers for that looked around 30. I think after you put in his fifth-year option and all that stuff, it comes down about 28 per year. I think the guarantees are honestly more of the sticking point that usually is for these players. But I think you get something around that Amon-Ra St. Brown deal. I don't think he's going to touch Jefferson. I think he's better than what like Devonta Smith had gotten, falling that like 28 mil range. Probably a sweet spot for the two of them.
Okay, makes sense. Joined by Kevin Potts, writer of the Kevin Potts NFL and NFL Draft Breakdowns Substack. Last question here on Aiyuk. So as a 49ers fan, like, do you think that Brandon Aiyuk is a necessity in terms of the 49ers potentially winning a Super Bowl?
I do. I think what we saw him do last year changed this offense from previous iterations that we've seen under Shanahan and Jimmy Garoppolo. His ability to beat man coverage, stretch the field vertically, were elements this offense did not have. I also think he's been a very big part of Brock Purdy's growth. And the difference between him and Jimmy Garoppolo previously is Purdy can create out of structure and push the ball a little bit downfield. Aiyuk is his guy for that. And it's really expanded this offense to previous heights that they didn't have. And I do think if they end up moving off a receiver after they extend Aiyuk, it'd probably be Deebo Samuel, who's also very unique in his own way. But you can replace that a little bit more with McCaffrey, Aiyuk, and Kittle with those underneath touches. They don't have anyone on this roster who is a legit outside X receiver who you can go tell beat man coverage and win down the field. So I think if they did lose him, they have a pretty massive hole in this offense, and it regresses to a level that's concerning for a team that wants to win a Super Bowl.
Okay, fair enough. That makes sense. Last question on the 49ers, and then we can move into training camp. I talked about Kyle Shanahan briefly on Tuesday. That sounds right. And, I think let me just ask you, do you think Kyle Shanahan is a good coach, or do you think he's a good head coach, or do you think he's just a great play caller?
I think he's a fantastic head coach. I just think winning's hard. I don't think he's a perfect head coach. I have a lot of issues that come with sometimes how he handles personnel. Sometimes his drafting is a little bit unorthodox. His in-game management has some problems. But as far as the grand scheme of things of head coach, obviously you talked about his play calling is fantastic. He generally does a fantastic job of building this roster, building this team, and how they interact with each other. And they've been incredibly successful. Obviously, you haven't won the big one, and that kind of changes how people view you. But that's because his bar is so high because we know how good he is at everything else. So he's not perfect, but you're not moving on from him because there's pretty much no one outside of a handful of guys that would actually be better than him. And even then, you're flipping a coin because winning is so hard in this sport. You're mostly guessing at that level.
Totally fair. It's hard to knock someone who can't beat Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. Right? I mean,
those guys are pretty good.
They are. And so, once again, joined by Kevin Potts, writer of the Kevin Potts NFL and NFL Draft Breakdown Substack. So, are you going to watch the Bears Hard Knocks this year?
Yeah, I think this is one of the more exciting ones I've been for. Obviously, I'm a draft guy. I'm excited to see the rookies, like see Caleb Williams, see Odunze come in. And this is a team that has added so much over the past couple of years that I'm really excited. I don't think it's going to be one of those Hard Knocks where it's full of a bunch of drama. It's just going to be almost a PR stunt for the Bears because they're such an exciting team with all these fun players they've brought in that I'm excited to see how they all interact for maybe some guys we haven't seen on camera a ton.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm interested in all the rookies, really just all their new offensive pieces in general, bringing in, Keenan Allen as well. I'm excited to see DJ Moore with a guy that we think is actually a good quarterback. And
Yep.
Is this how old are you?
I'm 25.
Okay. I'm 24, so this is perfect. Is this the first time in our lives that we've been more interested in the Bears offense than we have their defense?
Yes. For cohesive unit, absolutely. There are some times I love watching Matt Forte and there's individual players who obviously been great. But as far as the preseason Bears offense, I can't remember one that's been as hyped as this one. That was justified, at least.
It only took them a long time to modernize football in Chicago. I mean, it's taken them forever. You said what?
I said half a century to finally get there.
Yeah, seriously. It's like, come on, guys, let's wake up. Let's go. And I think this is also I think the Bears are the most interesting team in the NFL, just with all the rookies and kind of all the excitement around them. Do you agree with that idea, or do you think there's another team out there more interesting in the NFL this year?
I say the Bears probably just from a holistic standpoint for anyone watching is probably the most interesting team in terms of the star power, the amount of media coverage, the big market. There are some teams I think I'm probably a little bit more excited for. I'm really excited to see what the Texans do this year in this year two of everything going on there. I'm excited to see what the Seahawks look like with a brand new head coach. I live up in Seattle, so I have a lot of friends who are for that team. Excited to see what McDonald kind of does. But I think as far as just a general fan, it's hard to think of a team that's more exciting for the Bears because they have such a wide range of outcomes that can happen with all these new fun players that it makes it a very interesting watch.
It really does. Like if the Bears went 7-10, I wouldn't be surprised. But if they went 11-6, I also wouldn't be surprised.
Exactly.
So, which is like you said, there's a lot of different outcomes. I'm excited to see specifically what Caleb Williams looks like. How long do you think it's going to take him to kind of adjust to the NFL and kind of play more consistently?
I don't think it's going to take him that long to adjust. He's a rookie. I think there's always going to be ups and downs. Even like CJ Stroud was great last year. He had some issues for large parts of the season. But I think we're going to see pretty early in that first month how special this player is because his football instincts and the way he operates on the field, there's going to be so many positives that I think it's going to be pretty clear that he knows what he's doing out there.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel about it. They brought in a new offensive coordinator as well, who used to be in. He's coming over from Washington, but he used to be in Seattle and works with Russell Wilson and those guys. So they should be good. I'm excited just to see the Bears and how they operate this year. You brought up the Houston Texans. What is your expectation for them this year? I don't know if we've talked about this with you on my show.
I think they're probably that tier 2 in the AFC contenders, with the Chiefs being by themselves, basically probably in the tier 1. Maybe you put the Ravens in there. But I think they're expected to probably win that division and be one of the teams that can maybe upset KC if things roll right. I do think some of the Stroud hype maybe has overextended a little bit, but I do think they've done a really good job this year of rounding out the rest of that roster. Obviously, you've been big with Collins and Dell. I think they've actually added on the defense, which is a big thing. You have D'Amico Ryan, he is the defensive head coach, adding more talent on that side of the ball to create a more well-rounded team and make the Houston team, I think, be more balanced and less reliant on that offense, which is what I'm excited to see, because when you get those type of teams, those are the teams that start to make runs 2 or 3 years into regime, as opposed to like, they were really fun last year. I don't think they're a great team. I think this year they could actually be a great team.
That is, yeah, I agree with that. Joined by Kevin Potts of the Kevin Potts NFL and NFL Draft Breakdown Substack. I'm with you. I think the Texans are Definitely the best team in the AFC South. Who would you have, kind of after them? Like if you had to predict how the AFC South finishes this year, 1 through 4, how would you predict it?
I'd go Texans at 1, and then I think 2, 3, Colts and Jags you can flip. I'd go 2 just because I believe in Trevor Lawrence. I mean, I'm a big Trevor Lawrence fan. I think he's a very good quarterback, and I'm going to lean towards the team that has the quarterback I have more faith in. So I'm going to put them at 2. Very excited for, obviously, the Colts with Anthony Richardson come back in, but it is year 2. He didn't play a lot year 1, so it's hard for me to put them at 2. And then I think the Titans, well, they will be fun, and I'm kind of excited to see what this accelerated rebuild they kind of got going on looks like. They just have way too many holes, especially on the offensive line, for me to put them anywhere before.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So speaking of the Colts, I think that the biggest concern for them heading into training camp is their secondary. They haven't, bolstered it at all. I thought that they'd take some of that cap space and go get a more experienced safety, maybe, and Xavier Howard, someone like that to kind of, because like this secondary is young and it wasn't super great last year. What are your thoughts on the Colts and the back end of their defense heading into training camp?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely interesting. We talked about this during the draft season about them potentially using their first pick on a defensive back with the trio that was there. And they're not doing that. And it seems like they have put some faith in this young secondary. I do think, obviously, if Kenny Moore at the nickel's great. I was a big fan of J.J. Brents when he came out. I think he can be a quality starting corner. You mentioned one out of safety. The good thing with safety is there's still a ton of options out there. There are guys like a Quandre Diggs, a Justin Simmons that you could potentially bring in. I don't know how much they'd want to spend there, but there are options for safeties out there. I think the big question is, what is that corner to? I believe Jalen Jones is probably slotted to be there, but he was a 7th round pick. So how does that look? That's the big one I'm looking at as you go and play better teams that are going to attack your second best corner on the outside. How does he hold up when he's asked to do that?
Yeah, that's my concern as well. I'd love it if they went and spent some money on Justin Simmons. He's been so good in Denver, and the fact that he's still just kind of sitting out there is kind of wild. I'd love to see the Colts go out and pay him. But yeah, I'm with you that second corner spot, it's like you said, it doesn't look too great as of right now. But like you said, they're showing some faith in this young secondary, hoping that they develop. And when you go and you draft a pass rusher like Leatu Latu, I think the hope is if our pass rush is better, our guys don't have to defend for as long. And so, speaking of him, who do you think receives more attention, more hype during Colts training camp, A.D. Mitchell or Leatu Latu?
I think it's going to be Mitchell. I mean, training camp is usually the fun videos that come out. And there's very few people in this rookie class that look and move like A.D. Mitchell at his size with his athletic ability. And even if Latu has a better camp, I think those clips of A.D. Mitchell making sweet one-handed grabs, contorting his body down the field are going to get a lot of the hype and the fan praise, even if Latu is a more consistent and better camp, which he probably will because he's just a more polished player at this point in time.
Okay, fair enough. That's how I feel too. And plus, training camp, it's not all pads. And I feel like receivers in shorts stick out just a little bit more than, defensive ends.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and Latu's one of those guys that I feel like you can kind of hit sim to the season and let's just get him on the field for week one. I don't have a lot of worries about him getting up to speed and needing those preseason reps as much as I do a guy like Mitchell. I think Latu's going to be fine skipping some of these shorts practices. So maybe that tones down the hype a little bit because I think he's football ready for week one.
Okay, sounds good. Joined by Kevin Potts of the Kevin Potts NFL and NFL Draft Breakdown Substack. Last question for you, Kevin. So, everybody wants for their team to be good, whether you're a fan, whether you're covering them. And because of that, I feel like most training camp coverage for teams is pretty positive. So, especially when it comes to quarterbacks. So, like Anthony Richardson, we haven't seen a ton of him. He looks great in shorts with the big arm and being athletic and just an absolute specimen. And so, there's going to be a lot of positive things, I think, written about Anthony Richardson. Is there a specific thing, though, that you like hearing about young quarterbacks making the leap from year one to year two where you're like, okay, he's developed this part of his game, so now I'm legitimately excited for how he's going to play?
I think for guys in this year two, I like when they kind of make mistakes in training camp, which sounds counterintuitive, but I think those guys that are willing to go out and push the ball down the field and not just take the check down over and over in these clips is something that I really like to see. I'm generally more curious with these younger guys is who they're throwing to, especially this Colts team. We obviously know what Michael Pittman Jr. is and how good he is. And I'm assuming Josh Allen should be that wide receiver too. But how does this pecking order go? Especially with this tight end group that is kind of a hodgepodge of names that's been in and out. I'm more curious to see who does he like to throw to? Who are the guys that are producing and getting that connection with them? Because I think that's probably the most translatable thing into the season is seeing who are his guys. Because like you said, he's going to look good in the shorts. He's going to throw well. So I want to see who is he throwing to so when we get to these real games, who are the guys that he trusts and wants to look to?
Okay, I was going to let you go, but then you brought up Josh Downs, and you said he was going to be wide receiver number 2. Do you think, because last year when he played for the Colts, he was in the slot a ton. Do you think he has the size to play outside?
Not consistently, but I think you can put him out there. I think he has enough quickness and enough juice that if you want to put him on the outside, you can. I'm not tossing him out on the line of scrimmage against press coverage a ton, which is why we talked about in the draft season, getting a guy like A.D. Mitchell who can be a legit axis. But I think you can move him around, put him in the slot, put him to Z where he's off the ball, move around in stacks and bunches. And I do think this Colts offense, based on what we saw last year, is very good at putting guys in different spots. So I don't think it's going to be a one answer fits all 4 downs, even Pittman where they're aligning. I think it's going to be a lot of different spots depending on the type of team, the coverage, and what the game plan is that week.
Okay, makes sense. Kevin, thanks for your time, man. I love having you on. You're smart. You're informed. You don't say insane things, which is always great, man. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, of course. Always a pleasure, man.
All right, see ya.
See ya.
That is Kevin Potts, writer for the Kevin Potts NFL and Draft Breakdowns Substack. Head over to Substack, subscribe to his thing. He does a great job. He's a good writer. He's smart. He's informed. He knows what he's talking about. And, those are the type of people that, those are the people that you want to read and listen to, not people who work at the Indy Star. So now, Conspiracy Corner, it's become one of my favorite segments to do. I haven't gotten to do it a ton, but I have a new conspiracy. It has to do with Caitlin Clark. I will share that with you when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
Life, it's full of moments, from first steps to first loves, moments that make life special. Now, life can also bring us difficult and disruptive moments like a cancer diagnosis, which is why the groundbreaking work of Stand Up to Cancer is so vital. They know the problem of cancer won't be solved by one doctor, one lab, or one hospital. It takes collaboration. That's why Stand Up to Cancer brings together top minds from different fields to find new and better treatments so patients can thrive. So when it matters, we can all show up for moments of a lifetime. Please join Stand
Often imitated, never duplicated. It's the real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Tickets, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
What's going on? The real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Tickets. One of my favorite segments. I love doing this. It has to do with Caitlin Clark. Okay, I'm doing Conspiracy Corner Caitlin Clark edition. This is Conspiracy Corner, where I either give you a new conspiracy that I have in the sports world. Okay, we're not talking, did Bush do 9/11? Not talking about that stuff within the sports world, or I respond to a new one that I see on the internet. And I have a Caitlin Clark conspiracy theory. I find the way that Caitlin Clark has been portrayed in the WNBA so far intriguing. I don't think it's fully accurate. I don't think that you would find it uncommon to come across parents that think of Caitlin Clark as a good role model for their kids. Okay, when she's at the podium answering tough questions, she answers them with grace. She always just says the right thing. It's really impressive. And I think that parents hear that and want their kids to act in a similar fashion. I think that people see that and they label Caitlin Clark as a nice person. Okay, that feeds into her image, these press conferences and how she maneuvers them with grace. Right? And I believe that in large part reflects the way that she was raised. Okay, her parents are at every game. Okay, we've seen the clips of her dad yelling at her during games. Like, it's clear that her parents have raised her well, and that shows in the moments we see of her off the court. Then there's the on-the-court stuff. And that's where things get a little interesting. I believe that the WNBA is going out of their way to ensure that people, fans in particular, like Caitlin Clark. Because everyone wants to root for the good guy. So the WNBA is making sure, doing everything that they can to be sure that Caitlin Clark is labeled as the good guy. Okay, and this belief, this idea that the WNBA is going out of their way to do this, comes from something that I have not seen in these WNBA broadcasts that I oftentimes saw when Caitlin Clark was playing basketball at Iowa. When Caitlin was a Hawkeye, she was intense. She was fiery. Okay, she had a motor mouth that could power skyscrapers in New York City. Okay, she talked a ton of trash, like rivaled Larry Bird with the amount of trash that she talked. Okay, and she complained to the officials constantly. Okay, it reminded me at least, of Luka Doncic, constantly nagging at the officials. And anytime she hit a big shot, the cameras would cut to her celebrating. Anytime there was a foul called against her, or anytime there was a moment where she thought she got fouled and the referees didn't call it, you would see her complain. Okay, and these broadcasts of her in the WNBA so far haven't shown that a ton. There have definitely been moments where we've seen it, but it hasn't been as overwhelming, as glaringly in your face as it was when she was at Iowa. Okay, like there are a couple of moments that really stick out. They showed her celebrating, pumping up the crowd in Minnesota when they beat the Lynx. There was some tension in that game. Minnesota Lynx head coach had some choice words about Caitlin Clark. Minnesota Lynx head coach is also the head coach of the Olympic team, and Caitlin Clark was not selected. That's one of the two moments that I can vividly remember them cutting to her celebrating or complaining or talking trash. Last night, there was a second moment. Okay, it becomes apparent that the Fever are going to lose on the road against a bad Dallas Wings team, and we see a video of her grabbing a water bottle and spiking it, right? Like, those are really the only two moments where we've seen some real raw emotion from Caitlin Clark. Okay. And I just find it peculiar that with as much as I remember watching Caitlin Clark trash talk and complain and do these things, I just find it peculiar that the WNBA and these broadcasts aren't showing that. And I believe that there are three potential explanations for this. The first option is that she's just stopped talking trash, complaining, and celebrating. And I laugh slightly in saying that because that's just absurd. I don't believe that one's true at all. Okay, now while I do think that people can change, while I do think that the idea that a leopard can't change its spots isn't true. You know, if that was the case and people were incapable of change, then AA meetings would be pointless. Okay, so I do believe that people can change and alter their behavior over time. I just think that it takes people time to do so. Caitlin Clark was highly animated during her final year at Iowa, and I highly doubt that she was able to make such a drastic change in such a short amount of time. So that option off the table. Option number 2, which is quite possible, is just that we've become numb to it. Okay, like I've seen Caitlin Clark celebrate, trash talk and complain so many times that I just don't realize it anymore. It's kind of like when you go nose blind in your house. Okay, that specific smell that you used to get when you walk through the door when you buy a new home, you don't get it anymore. You become nose blind to it, right? And then other people show up at your house and you're like, geez, I really hope it smells good in here. But you don't know. You go nose blind to it. You go numb to it. And I think that is a potential reasoning as to why I don't notice this stuff anymore. It is, right? Because she celebrated, talked trash, and complained a lot at Iowa. So it's very possible that I just got used to it. Okay, like this happened to me before. Okay, I'm a Dallas Mavericks fan in my heart of hearts, and so I watch a lot of Dallas Mavericks basketball, and I got so accustomed to watching Luka Doncic complain at the level that he does that I just kind of stopped noticing it. And then all of a sudden, the Dallas Mavericks are in the Western Conference Finals and the NBA Finals, and I'm getting on Twitter. People are like, oh my gosh, Luka Doncic complains all the time. And I'm just kind of like, you kind of get used to it and you don't notice it anymore. Right. And so when that happened, I was reminded, right, and that Luka complained so much. And I think it's very possible that I've gone through a similar numbing phase with Caitlin Clark's trash talk complaining and celebrating. The third and final option, the conspiracy theory part, the conspiracy theory option. The third and final option, our conspiracy theory option, is that nothing has changed and that the WNBA and ESPN and whoever's broadcasting these games are choosing not to show it. They are going out of their way to portray Caitlin Clark in a very positive manner because they know that the more people that like Caitlin Clark, the more people that will watch. Okay? It makes sense from a marketing perspective that they would want to paint her in a positive light. And if that's what they're trying to do through the way that they're broadcasting these games, it's working brilliantly. Okay, Caitlin Clark is viewed as this positive role model, even though she complains at the same level as Luka Doncic, even though she talks trash at the same frequency as Gary Payton, even though she celebrates like Deion Sanders high stepping into the end zone. Okay, like I don't know about you, but my parents would not have condoned me complaining to referees and umpires that way or celebrating in that manner or talking trash. I'll never forget. It was the summer after my sophomore year of high school. I'm playing baseball, American Legion stuff, and I'm having a day at the plate. I mean, just an absolute day. I'm like 3 for 3. I've hit like 2 doubles and like a screaming line drive that was a single, like just tearing it up at the plate. And I'm feeling myself feeling really good. And, so I'm playing shortstop, and the pitcher on the opposing team winds up on second base. And, I had to let him know that I was 3 for 3 with 2 doubles. I had to. I didn't say anything too crazy. I was just like, hey, man, like, you just can't really get me out today. All that kind of stuff. Then he starts talking back, and then I start talking back, and a little back and forth. The opposing team's coach calls time, sends out a courtesy runner, and that was kind of that. And from that point on, I remember walking back into the dugout, my coach being like, Jonathan, don't do that. And then after the game, my dad being like, Jonathan, don't do that. That's not a good image. Like, we don't want you to behave that way. Right. But that's how Caitlin Clark behaves. And she's kind of viewed as this positive role model. And it's an interesting thing to me because we all know that she complains. We all know that she talks trash. And we all know that she celebrates. But when Luka Doncic complains, we're like, we don't like Luka because of that. Or when, Patrick Beverley, celebrates or talks trash, we're like, we don't really like that. Right? Like, what makes Caitlin Clark different from those guys? What makes her different from former great players that we didn't like, who talked trash, complained, and celebrated? Is it really are the press conferences so overwhelmingly impressive that it washes everything away? I don't think that they are. I think she handles herself well, but I don't think she handles herself that well. Is it because all these other WNBA players are so incredibly petty that she pales in comparison, and so she appears to be just so much better than her peers that we view her in a better light? Is that what's happening? Now, I'm not really sure what it is, but what I do know is that we make exceptions for great athletes. We make exceptions for generational players, right? And the reason why we make exceptions is just simply because they're great. For example, Michael Jordan, we made exceptions for him. Michael Jordan talked a lot of trash. Michael Jordan complained to the officials. Michael Jordan celebrated when he hit big-time shots, right? Michael Jordan was a jerk to his teammates, and we didn't care. He didn't talk to his teammates, and when he did, it was oftentimes, him lashing out at them because they didn't give him the ball, or, they didn't play defense the right way, or they didn't do this, right? It was either him lashing out in that fashion, or it was him making fun of them in a derogatory way. He wasn't nice, but he was on the cover of Wheaties boxes, and he had his own shoe brand with Nike, and he was, an endorser for McDonald's. All these very positive, well-rounded brands were who he represented. And part of that was his image. We had the whole be like Mike thing, right? Everyone should want to be like Mike because he's so talented, and he's such a great guy, even though he wasn't a great guy. And I think Caitlin Clark falls into a similar category of she is so overwhelmingly awesome at basketball that we ignore everything else about her. We ignore the trash talk and the celebrating and the annoying complaining. And, hey, when you're great, you're great. And she really is. She showed why she is so incredible last night, breaking not one, but 2 WNBA records. I'm going to talk about those when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
People join Walk MS to raise awareness and funds that change the world for everyone affected by multiple sclerosis. MS attacks the brain and spinal cord. It's the most common neurological disease leading to disability in young adults. Walk MS brings communities together, creating teams with friends, loved ones, and coworkers to rally around those we care about and end MS forever. Join us. Together we are stronger. Walk MS fundraising accelerates research breakthroughs and life-changing breakthroughs. It will take all of our passion, determination, and fundraising to end MS forever. Together, we can change the world for people with MS. Join us. Register today, start a team, and raise funds at walkms.org.
Welcome back to The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
The Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket, just churning out nothing but can't miss content. That's what I do. That's what we do here at Indy's Sports Ticket, the Dan Dockett Show. Following me here from noon to 3. Make sure you are locked in to that because it's going to be a good show. It is, because Dan always puts on a good show, just like Caitlin Clark. If you tune in and you watch Caitlin Clark play basketball, you will never not be entertained. Okay? She is a walking highlight reel is probably a bit much, but you will be wowed. You will be. And yeah, like she's amazing. And we saw it again last night. The Indiana Fever lost to the Dallas Wings. I don't want to talk about that. It's not what I want to talk about. Caitlin Clark set the WNBA, not the Indiana Fever. She set the WNBA assist record, single game assist record last night with 19. Caitlin Clark also set the single season assist record for the Indiana Fever, and she is 13 assists away from breaking the rookie record for most assists in a rookie season. 13 away, and we're at the All-Star break. So you can take your turnover criticism and you can shove it where the sun doesn't shine, buddy. Who cares about the turnovers? Caitlin Clark finished with 24 points and 19 assists. She has scored or assisted on more of her team's points than anyone else in the WNBA. Who cares about the turnovers? Okay? Very rarely is something just completely and totally only good. Usually there's some sort of downside. And when the upside of Caitlin Clark is this high, I think Christy Sides and the Fever can deal with a few turnovers here and there. Okay, the only people who care about the Caitlin Clark turnovers are Angel Reese fans and people who, for whatever reason, don't like Caitlin Clark. Okay, that is what that is who the turnover conversation before. It's for the irrational people who want to figure out some sort of way of selling Angel Reese as, the potential rookie of the year, even though she is plus 600 to win the rookie of the year, and Caitlin Clark, as of right now, is minus 3,000. She is the overwhelming favorite to be the rookie of the year, and she is overwhelmingly the best rookie in this rookie class. It's not close. It's one of the rare times where when someone says it's not close and it's actually true. And Caitlin Clark was asked yesterday after her game about setting the WNBA single game assist record and breaking the Fever single season assist record. She was pretty nonchalant about it, so I appreciate Aaliyah Boston opening up the response to the question with a little positivity.
She's gonna say it means nothing, but I think it's pretty cool. I think that's pretty cool. So it's all right.
I just think I just try to set my teammates up for success. I think at times, I can almost overpass, and that can maybe, I don't know. There probably could have been a few times where instead of passing that leads to turnover that I might have, I can probably shoot the ball. But especially with AB, I'm just looking to set her up so much. My eyes are just always on our post players, whether that's Liz or whether that's AB or whoever's in the game at the time, and then kind of look out from there. But yeah, still didn't shoot it very good from three, and I thought we finished really well around the paint. I'm sure our points in the paint were pretty good, 62 points in the paint. So yeah,
that was Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston discussing just the incredible performance that Caitlin Clark had last night with 19 assists, a single game WNBA record. It's incredible. Okay. And Caitlin's right. They didn't shoot the ball very well from three, and they still scored 93 points. Okay. They didn't shoot the ball very well from three, and Caitlin Clark still had 19 assists. Imagine if they had had a normal average shooting game from beyond the 3-point line. She easily would have surpassed that 20 assist mark. She's incredible. She's an absolute lightning rod. Okay, there's a reason why I talk about her every single day, because she is nothing short of spectacular. Okay, the way that she creates for her teammates, the way that she shoots the ball and creates space, and the consistency isn't quite there yet at the WNBA level, but you can see it getting better over time. She's averaging, 19 points and 11 assists over the last month. Okay, she's leading the WNBA in assists per game at over 8 a game now, which is absurd. Okay, she is an absolute phenom, and she rebounds decently well. She had 6 rebounds last night. In addition to it, offensively, she is an absolute machine. Okay, she just creates points. It's incredible to watch. Defensively, however, it's not great. Okay, if you want to rip Caitlin Clark for the turnovers, I will stand my ground pretty firmly and push back against that. But if you want to rip her and this Indiana Fever team for how horrendous they were defensively last night against one of the worst teams in the WNBA, I will step aside and I will allow you to do so. Okay, they gave up 101 points last night in a 40-minute game. It's not great. Usually, if you score 93 points in a 40-minute game, you're going to win. It's really hard to lose when you score that many points in such a short amount of time. And yeah, they've got to be better defensively. Okay. I've been pretty adamant. I think Christy Sides is a good coach. I think she's done a lot of good things. But the defense has fluctuated. Okay. Down and up, down and up. When they play against the better teams, they seem more engaged. But when they played the Washington Mystic last week, they lost. In part because they didn't defend very well. And then last night they play another awful team in the Dallas Wings, and they lose because they didn't defend very well. Okay, like there has to be a consistent energy and effort on the defensive side of the ball throughout a season. And look, the Fever are young; they're up and down. Okay, like they know that they're a good team, and losing to the Wings may have just been in part because they thought that they were overwhelmingly better, and that's just not the way that professional sports work in any league. Okay, if you think that you're head and shoulders above somebody, you will lose because they are professionals as well. Okay, the other athletes are getting paid just like they are. And they came out last night and they just weren't ready to defend. They were ready to score because, everyone's ready to play offense, but the defense has fluctuated too much. It's been up and down way too much. But something that has been consistent, especially over this last month, is Caitlin Clark's pure greatness in getting buckets for herself and also getting buckets for her teammates. And yeah, it's impressive. It's fun to watch. And I'm a big fan of fun. So I'm gonna talk about this to close the show. So one of my best friends is getting married on Sunday. So I will not be here Monday. I won't be doing a show. Dan will be in though. He'll be on from noon to 3. So Monday I won't be here. And for my buddy's bachelor party. So he lives all the way up in Portland. And so we're doing the bachelor party the day before the wedding, which sounds dangerous, I know. And he wants for us to do, or we are doing, it's not a want, we're doing this. We are doing a groomsman combine, which is I'm over the moon excited about. So we're basically going to do the NFL combine and we're going to test our numbers and we're going to log them. So we're going to take the Wonderlic test, which if you don't know what that is like the IQ test that they have potential draftees take. We're going to bench press. We're going to do a broad jump, a vertical, the L drill. No idea what that is. The short shuttle, and then we're going to run the 40-yard dash. Here's what I want to know. So I'm 24. I'm pretty active. Like I like to go outside. I like to play pickup basketball. I like to play pickleball. Okay, I like to go on a jog occasionally. I enjoy going to the gym, working out, doing those things. Can't wait for that bench press competition. I'm putting up 225. No, not a doubt in my mind. With the adrenaline running, with all the other guys around you. Oh yeah. 225. Yeah, that's coming easily. So excited for that. But when was the last time you ran full speed? Like when was the last time, you were playing football with your buddies or whatever, and you ran a go route. You just ran as fast as you could. When was the last time, you were on a nice little walk around your neighborhood and you saw a dog and it chased you and you just ran as fast as you could? When was the last time you full out, all out sprinted? That's what I want to know. Tweet at me @__ Jonathan Smith. When was the last time you just booked it as fast as you could? Because I'm 24 and I'm very active. I couldn't tell you the last time that I just like full blown like sprinted as fast as I could. Like, yes, I play a lot of pickup basketball, which is fun. I enjoy it. But, the court's 94 feet. You're cutting a lot, so you aren't really just running like full speed in a straight line. And so the last time I just full blown sprinted was probably when I was in college, which is kind of nuts. So I'm curious. Tweet at me @__ Jonathan Smith. When was the last time you ran as fast as you could in just a straight line? Okay, because I have no idea. No idea whatsoever. That's going to do it for the Real Jonathan Smith Show. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to tune in and listen, whether that was on Twitter @__ Jonathan Smith, if you want to watch the stream there, on YouTube, Indie Sports Ticket. Go subscribe, join the chat during these live streams. It's a great time. Maybe you listen on the radio, 14:30 a.m. or via the Indie Sports Ticket app. I greatly appreciate it. I'll be back again tomorrow from 10 to noon. The Dan Dockett Show is coming your way here in about 5 minutes.